Interestingly enough, there are men that actually do it well in business and have horrible personal lives because they don't utilize it. You know, there's a direct correlation between them. So we need to understand and recognize that the information age has brought a total transformation in our social structure. It's opening new things, and we're not going to put this genie back in the bottle. And to be honest, I wouldn't want the genie to be back in the bottle. I love the hell out of June Cleaver, you know, Leave It to Beaver, but I wouldn't want to be married to her. You know, I think there's some amazing dynamics involved. You know, there's some things I miss, and feminism has gone from one swing of the pendulum to June Cleaver to Kim Kardashian. The pendulum has gone too far to one side. We need to take the value. Women don't have to give up everything. They don't need to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. They don't have to get rid of the domicile and the domestic aspects of being feminine and the things that naturally draw men to them. But we need to be aware of some of the issues that we're facing today as the age. The second element will be the cultural element of what we're going to be looking at. And culture today is about storytelling. It always has been, and it's been with us for eternity. You know, we can see it in cave paintings, and it's an element that codifies our cultural beliefs and values, and it gives us an indication of what we can expect and how to behave. You know, and what is society teaching us today? And I'm going to go through them really quick because we just don't have time to cover them all. The first and primary is that you're not the favored sex. We have a favored child. It's not men. Okay? We guise it in a number of ways, but we make allowances for women. All right? The biggest and the most blatant is the fact that we openly value the dramatic disparities between men and women. We saw a prime example in this in Aurora, Colorado, the shooting. Your life is not worth as much as a woman's. Each and every one of you is expected to give up your life to a woman you don't know, just because you're male, to the extent that it costs you your life. By the way, there's no reciprocation. The social contract, by the way, interesting enough, was not that she gives her life up to provide for you and to protect for you. It's to nurture you. It's to nurture your children. It's to be the mother of your child and to raise your children. By the way, how's that social contract going? Are women today nurturers? Do you have any belief based on divorce statistics that you're going to actually have a relationship and a family still together after 15 years? When the divorce ratio is over 50%? 70% of the time women are violent. These are harsh realities. Second one is that society today is terribly misandric. And that is a phrase probably most of you don't know. If you understand what misogyny is, it's a hatred towards women. Misandry is the direct correlation opposite of it. It's the antithesis. It's when women hate men, or men who hate men. Okay? We are openly misandric. So for example, a classic example, another recent occurrence, would have been an episode of The View. And it's not that I hate The View, it's that you have a collection of women on national TV openly and without shame and unabashedly celebrating, laughing, mocking, and taking absolute sheer delight in a sexual molestation of a man and a sexual attack. A man who had the audacity to file for divorce because he wasn't happy, did so openly, no overt signs of abuse, no story along those lines, but she took a knife, mutilated his genitals, threw him in a garbage disposal, and to turn the sucker on. The women laughed and giggled at the fact that his penis went down the garbage disposal. Flip that on its head. Can you imagine a panel of men openly laughing about a sexual mutilation of a woman because she had the audacity to divorce a man and give herself the eat, pray, love tour around the world? Not that he had any intention of doing that. This is the world we live in. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's fair. It's not just. And men are starting to talk up about it. The comments on culture is going to be primarily about men's rights. So the following ones that I'm talking about, if you have an interest in it, look up men's rights. The men that are going to be talking about it have been damaged and hurt. They're angry. And they have a right to be angry. They've been terribly damaged. Another element that we'll look at culturally is the fact that we suspend accountability for women and we give them special privileges. The clearest example would be the single mother syndrome, and it is an immense syndrome today, is the fact that we have a thing called deadbeat dad. The fastest way to cure deadbeat dad problem is for women to stop fucking deadbeats. These men just don't pop out of nowhere. They were fucking deadbeats to start with, all right? And it wasn't just that they were deadbeats. These women were attracted to deadbeats. What's that telling you about her character? What's that telling you about her makeup? Is it fair to sit down and say, what the fuck were you thinking when you slept with this guy? Okay? Honestly, we're not allowed to do that. You will be shamed, shut up, and silenced for even bringing that up. And by the way, there's a response to it. An entire community of men who've gone underground because they weren't allowed to be above ground on it, developed skills and reactions to get women they wanted to be with based on what women were choosing. This is the pickup community. Answering demand. Not answering the fantasy that women were portraying. You know, I want a decent guy, I want a loving husband, I want a family. Now, meanwhile, she's getting her dick on. Now, the reality is these guys are giving back the men that they're actually choosing. They're getting smart about it. I don't think it's healthy for society. I don't think it's healthy for the relationships. I know it's not healthy for the children they end up having. All right. We can continue on. We have a notion of the outlay of information age on society when women are getting more and more educated, that women tend to marry up as a cultural model. Part of that is recognizing men provide, which is another way of saying men marry down. Look at it that way. Men don't marry up, they marry down. Based on that and women marrying up, what happens when a woman becomes more educated? She earns more, she has more independence, she's more secure, she's more independent. The pool of available men diminishes dramatically. Throw on that the notion of female entitlement, this notion of special privilege with entitlement and princessdom syndrome. You know, you have women that are saying never settle. And they have a right to never settle, but there are consequences. And for over 3 generations of women, women have been told you can do anything, you can be anything, but there's that unspoken element, there are consequences. And up until fairly recently, the numbers have been small, and there's always been some other man willing to step in to provide. And what we can look at the train wrecks on those. But the reality is they're starting to become acutely aware that good men have left the building like Elvis. By the time you hit your late 30s, early 40s, good men are no longer available. And what we have is not just a woman who's exercised that notion of education and developing herself in an appropriate way, but there's this delusion of entitlement, that good men will be available when she's ready. The consequences is that they're not. And what we have developed is an element of New Age spinsterdom. When you have smart, educated, good-looking women who are single, middle-aged, and they're not able to find relationships because they have not prepared themselves for it, they have not geared themselves for it, and they themselves have priced themselves out of the sexual marketplace. Women, rather than working on their own development, their own skills, their own relationship abilities, start making bullet point lists of what the next man is going to provide her. All she's doing is rotating casts of characters.